Canadian hockey fans are still waiting for their first Stanley Cup since 1993. The table is forever tilted against Canadian teams, not just because there are fewer of them, but because tax incentives lure great players south. The NHL's salary cap is $95.5 million this season. In BC, Ontario, and Quebec, the highest combined tax rate of provincial and federal taxes is more than 53%. In several U.S. states, there is no state income tax at all. The effect on take-home pay is substantial. Table napkin math suggests a roster paid to the salary cap would collectively take home about $44.4 million US in Ontario or Quebec. In Alberta, that figure rises to $49.7 million US. In states with no income tax, it exceeds $60.2 million US. That means teams in places such as Tampa Bay, Dallas, Vegas, Seattle, and Nashville enjoy a take-home pay advantage of roughly $15.8 million US over teams in Ontario and Quebec. That's an advantage of almost 36% before a player ever steps onto the ice. The gap has also widened over time. Canada's highest federal income tax rate rose from 29% to 33%, beginning with the 2016 tax year. In the US, the top federal rate fell from 39.6% to 37% in 2018. Of course, taxes aren't the only factor affecting where players choose to play. Weather, media attention, organizational stability, and championship opportunities also matter. But it would be naive to dismiss taxes as a factor. Among players who change teams with contracts worth $1 million US or more, only 15 to 20% signed in Canada in any given year since 2021. That's less than the 21.8% share of NHL teams located in Canada. The impact becomes even easier to see when looking at an individual player. Toronto Maple Leaf Austin Matthews keeps about $6.15 million US of his $13.25 million salary. Had he played in Florida, he would have kept about $8.34 million US. The difference is $2.19 million a year, or nearly $3 million Canadian. It's doubtful that Matthews, an American, would be in Toronto had the team not drafted him in 2016. If he plays 20 years as a Leaf instead of with a team such as the Tampa Bay Lightning, his shortfall in after-tax career earnings would be roughly $42 million US, or $60 million Canadian. That is downright staggering. The southward pull isn't limited to hockey players. Bank of Canada data shows that about 40% of Canadians who would rank in the top 1% of earners have moved to the US, along with 30 to 50% of the next 9 percentiles of high earners. According to the same research, the departure of top earners accounts for roughly 3/4 of the Canada-US gap in GDP per adult. Hockey simply provides a highly visible example of the same economic reality. In fact, Canada continues to produce much of the world's elite hockey talent. The 2018 Washington Capitals remain the only Stanley Cup champion in NHL history whose roster was made up of less than half Canadian players. Canada is losing elite earners because it taxes them more heavily, and its Stanley Cup futility is one more sign of the damage. The US is a better place to keep what you earn, and that's a big reason why it keeps the Stanley Cup too. Please like, share, and subscribe if you appreciate our content.